Hello and welcome to the programme. The perfect work-life balance. Who wouldn't want it? A satisfying job and enough time properly to relax and enjoy your days off. Fancy a 4-day week? Stay tuned. You're watching Roundtable with me, David Foster. But the question is, would companies get anything done with their workers not showing up as much? The research is perhaps surprising.
COVID-19 has changed the way we live, socialize, and work. Businesses were forced to close offices and allow staff to work from home. But as lockdowns ease and many people return to HQ, many argue that now is the time to implement a 4-day workweek. Jacinda Ardern, New Zealand's Prime Minister, suggested employers could consider a shorter working week in response to the COVID-19 crisis. The idea is not new. Last year, Microsoft tested a 4-day workweek in Japan and found productivity jumped by 40%. A survey of 1,500 workers and 600 human resource managers found that 66% of workers said they wanted to work less than 5 days a week. However, others argue that employers may take advantage and see it as a way to get staff to do 5 days of work for 4 days' pay. COVID-19 has given an opportunity to rethink how we do things. So is the 4-day workweek dawning on us?
And we can welcome to the round table Joe Ryle, Campaign Officer at the 4-Day Workweek campaign. Say hello also to Laura Joja, Research Fellow at the Wellbeing Research Centre at the University of Oxford, and Rajneesh Narula, Professor at the Henley Business School, which is part of Reading University. Great to have all three of you on the programme. Joe, let's start with you. You work a 4-day week, but what evidence is there that this would be good for other companies?
Well, there's loads of evidence. Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky to enjoy a 4-day week. I mean, we're in a post-crisis moment, the COVID-19 crisis, and actually, what we need to be doing right now is talking about a better work-life balance going into the future. We know that, for example, in the UK, 2/3 of workers are overstressed and overworked in the workplace. It's about time we had a better work-life balance. Working hours here, like across the rest of Europe, haven't really reduced since the 1980s, and we're well overdue a 4-day week.
I noticed that you say that we've got the longest working hours in Europe, but if you take a look at the World Economic Forum website, it goes Greece, Bulgaria, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Romania, Hungary, Croatia, Portugal, Slovenia. No mention of the UK in that.
We've got the longest working hours in the EU, certainly, and one of the longest in Europe. Productivity is lagging behind, and you know, it's not really a surprise that when workers aren't overworked and stressed and they have the time in their life to be more motivated in their job, it's not a surprise that therefore that boosts productivity. And we've seen that wherever trials have taken place, for example, where Microsoft trialled it in Japan, and where companies are already moving over to it here in the UK.
Well, I think we'll take a look at what Japan's chief executive at Microsoft actually had to say. That's Takuya Hirano. This was last August. Work a short time, rest well, and learn a lot. I want employees to think about and experience how they can achieve the same results with 20% less working time. Laura, think about how they can achieve the same results. How would you go about it?
Right. So I think it's important to realize that in less time, you get to focus on the things that you're supposed to do in your work as opposed to just like what popular press called bullshit work. So you tend to zoom in on the things that bring value to the organization and using your unique skills as opposed to trying to show that you're working and working long hours, which we know decrease well-being.
Why can't you do that if you work 5 days a week?
Well, I think you can. It's also a matter of choice. It's a matter of thinking beyond just the 5-day structure of work, which is something that has existed for 50 years only, and think about what are the benefits of actually having an extra day. And at least in my research, what I see is that people who use their time off in positive ways by engaging in active leisure, like socializing or spending time with family and friends, they not only experience better well-being, but they're also more engaged at work. And so right now, I think a lot of us are using our weekend for things like getting our laundry done, as opposed to actually enjoying this active leisure. And so having this extra day of doing our necessities would free up time in the weekend to spend time with our friends and family, which
I suppose what you're saying is if you're happier, then you're going to work better.
there is actually recent research from the University of Oxford showing that happier employees are more productive.
Rajneesh, Laura references there the end of the 6-day working week 50 years ago. I spent some time living in Gulf countries where a 6-day week is still normal. And I can remember as a reporter referencing the 48-hour week, which was seen as a reduction in hours in the UK. Whatever people get, they're always going to want more, though, aren't they?
Well, there's an interesting point here, is that productivity doesn't follow from people having more time. It is when people are more productive, they can do what the basic point is. You can do in 5 days what we used to do in 6 days, and that's sort of why we went to a 5-day week. The idea of going to a 4-day week is based on the premise that we can do what we did in 5 days in 4. Now, the UK is far behind in this matter. France is about 10 to 15% more efficient productivity-wise, looking at the statistics. So really, I mean, trying to squash more free time out of the 5-day week assumes that we can be more productive in those 4 days. And that is not a given. We can see this happening in certain industries, perhaps, and certain individuals are more motivated, but it isn't something we can have as a blanket activity. The Germans haven't done it, the French haven't done it, who are definitely more efficient than the British. I'm not seeing how this can become policy or the standard working week, a 4-day working week.
Yeah, Joe, let's come back to you. And of course, any one of you can say whatever you like at any time. Don't wait for me necessarily to ask a question. My point that I put to Rajneesh basically is that if you compress the working week, it's brilliant to start with because everybody thinks, I've got something extra. But after a short period of time, people are going to think this is the new normal. Maybe I need a 3.5-day week.
Well, I mean, I think that's a good move. I mean, we're not dead set on a 4-day week. I just think we need to recognise that the 5-day working week is actually quite ridiculous that we're still working this much, so inefficiently and so unproductively. When actually, more automation is on the way. I mean, the great promise of automation was it was going to free us all up to have more free time to do the things that we love in our lives. As already been said, spending time with
or do us out of a job. That was the other argument.
Well, actually, I mean, post-coronavirus, I mean, there's an argument that's starting to take a lot of sway, which is that actually the 4-day working week and shorter working time can be used to prevent an unemployment crisis. And if the government used such a scheme like they do in Germany, you have a sort of shorter working time subsidy scheme. You can keep jobs, which is essential when they're in a recession, but at the same time transition to more desirable working patterns. I think that's where we've got to be moving.
If you end up working a 4-day week, I mean, you people in general, aren't employers going to wonder why they ever paid you for 5?
Well, I mean, that should be a lesson to us all. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows someone that spends a lot of their week twiddling their thumbs. Maybe they're spending too much time on Facebook or Twitter. They're probably is that kind of person who's overworked and stressed. And you can't be motivated to work that much, and you shouldn't be. We need to build a world where we work to live rather than live to work. And the 4-day week is a massive part of it.
All right, this one's for all of you, but I'll start you on this one, Joe. If I say to you, you're going to have a 4-day week, which is 20% less, I'm going to want to cut your pay.
So, I mean, working with the trade unions and a move to a 4-day week has got to be done for a bottom-up approach with businesses and a top-down approach from government. And trade unions have also got to be in the mix as part of that. So we work with the trade unions and we call for a reduction to 4 days a week with no loss in pay. And we think that is the right model, and that's the model that will be popular across the country. If the government used a shorter working time subsidy scheme, then that will make it possible in a quicker fashion.
Rajneesh, I saw you sort of nodding in agreement with the point I was trying to make, or maybe I'm wrong about that, but that would seem to be the case. Work less, going to pay you less.
Well, in fact, I think this whole argument is moot. We are in the COVID-19 pandemic. It's not going anywhere for a while. And I know for a fact that many companies, my university, for instance, is looking at us working 5 days for 4 days pay. So they gave us, I think, essentially the choice was that we work 4 days and get paid for 4 days, or we work 5 days and get paid for 4 days. And this is not unique to my university. It's happening across the board. And they're giving us a choice. We'll fire more people, we'll fire people, or we'll give you pay you for 4 days. So this is going to become the new norm, not the idea that people will get paid for 5 days. The companies are going bankrupt left, right, and center right now. And people are going to want to keep their jobs. You can't really, trade unions aren't in a position to say, well, we're going to go on a strike. How? Why? Thank you for going on a strike. We have fewer people to pay. I know this sounds very anti-trade union, but it's reality. We are not that efficient that we can do stuff that was so quickly and become more efficient to do what we did in 5 days in 4 days. And the company, as you say, will say, well, why are we paying you for 5 days? Because we would save money.
And Laura, you were sort of nodding, I think, in agreement with what Rajneesh had to say.
Right. So I think there are a couple of points here. First of all, this focus on the 4-day work week or whatever work structure we end up using, more flexible, that helps the employees. It's not about cutting the pay so that people do the same work. People work in part because they get monetary rewards, which is the salary. They also work because they get intrinsic motivation, which is they enjoy the work that they do. And more we see people wanting more from their job than just the paycheck. And I think the conversation right now, even on this call, is focused on we need to be more productive. We need to be more efficient. And this productivity mindset, I think it's pushing people towards unhappiness. There's quite some good research coming up right now showing that people who focus on money and prestige and getting higher paid jobs are not happier. Those who tend to engage in more leisure time are happier. So this idea of be more productive, I think it's tending to be pushed towards the edge and also at the detriment of productivity.
Well, but hang on a second, because you're suggesting that the real motivation should be to enjoy your job, to really get satisfaction out of it. Why would you want to cut your working hours if, in fact, it was the one thing that you really enjoyed? You'd want to work 6 days a week, perhaps.
Because I think there's this bias of I love my job, and the more I work, I want to work more, but you get to burnout if you constantly work, and you get engagement in your work and even meaning from your work if you do take some time away from it. So I think even people who love their work and are passionate about it are at a higher risk for continuing to work at this pace if they want to. And so I'm not arguing against if you want to work 7 days, that's fine, but at least the research shows that if you don't take time away from your work, you end up maybe not enjoying your work as much.
Joe, you were wanting to come in?
Yeah, I think productivity is only half of the answer. All the studies show, and where businesses have moved over to 4-day week, all of that shows that productivity would be boosted. But it's only half the answer. I think we need to look at this also as societal progress. I think that society would be immeasurably happier with more free time. We haven't moved in that direction for 40, 50 years. This is a long overdue move. And there would be other boosts to the economy. For example, the UK tourism sector would massively benefit from a 4-day week because people would be going on more UK holidays. There's other industries, leisure industries, that would massively benefit. This is going to have a positive impact on people's lives and the economy.
Okay, well, we'll get into whether the people in the tourist industry or supermarkets or whatever, or shops, would have to work longer hours to cater for those people who had more leisure time. We'll do that in just a moment, if we may. But I want to bring in somebody called Mark McDermott here. We're going to hear from him. He's head of a startup called ScreenCloud, digital startup. He put his people onto a 4-day week. He said it went very, very well indeed. Some have chosen to remain on that 4-day week, but there were issues.
Where I think long term it's more complicated is expectations from customers are ever rising. Right now at ScreenCloud we're 24/5 in terms of how we support our customers across multiple time zones, and the actual desire is to move to 24/7. It could still be achieved on a 4-day week, but you would need a very large team in order to do that. So in the time when you're scaling, I think that gets quite complicated. And often you'll find that the burden is shared more by those who are not on a 4-day week, having to pick up issues whilst colleagues are away.
So there you have Mark McDermott saying people want service all of the time. How do you balance the two issues?
There's something to recognize in our society that we've, technology has been great in many ways, but it has also led to this 24/7 economy and the need to be constantly connected and the possibility to have multiple lives if you want to, and always on. And so I think it comes down to a re-education of the global economy being available all the time. I'm not saying that that's the case. I think it depends. At least in my research that I've done with people taking some time away and not being available to their customer services, they were not necessarily not happy. And so maybe it has to be a structure where you talk to the employees to figure out a way that works for the organization and the customers,
But
that they're happy.
what occurs to me at this point is if you need to boost your payroll, in other words, employ more people to do the work that your customers are demanding, because some of your employees are only working 4 days a week. If you have to pay more people, your costs are going to go up, and you as an employer are not necessarily going to like that.
Or you try to be more flexible in how you introduce the 4-day work week, working in certain shifts. I think at the core of it, at least how I'm looking at the 4-day work week is the time to be innovative and think of different ways of organizing your work time and your leisure time and make it work together with your employees, because the employees are there to support the business, as you said, not that the business is there to support the employees to do their best job, not the other way around.
Rajneesh, you're at a business school. What do you think employers would make of it if they had to employ more people to do the work that their customers are demanding?
We're stuck on this rather kind of short and simplistic take home that it's 4-day work week. What we're really concerned about here is how can we make people work happily, and that if they're happier and they work in a happier way, they are more efficient, and they're more efficient, then they may be able to do what they did in 5 days in 4. So this is actually a step along the way. It's a final end product might be 4-day working week, but we're trying to create efficiencies, and I can't see how I can tell. I don't know, as you say, supermarket employees, that how can you stack more shelves in the same instead of in 5, what you did in 8 hours, now you should do it in 6 hours. So I think I think the focus on the 4-day week is actually quite wrong. It's focusing on how do you make people happy when they work. They should enjoy what they do, and if they enjoy what they do, with the support of their employers, they will, or they should, or they might become more efficient.
It's the might that I'm thinking of here, because Joe, I saw you wanting to say something, but what I want to pick up on what Rajneesh just said, they make people happier at their jobs, but there are some jobs you're just never going to be happy doing because they're miserable occupations.
We've never called for the 4-day week to be brought in overnight. We're not saying that, that there has to be a transition to get there. And, going to this thing about the service sector, obviously there's a unique set of circumstances there. We don't think that there would be, everyone's not going to take the same day off each week. It would be spread out across the week in the most efficient and most practical way possible for a supermarket, or even the NHS. NHS is a good example. You've got lots of nurses and doctors completely overworked, completely stressed, completely burnt out, particularly after COVID. That's somewhere where actually the government could actually hire some more nurses, which they need to do anyway. And you start to transition that 4-day week over the different. People take different days off that week. It's very doable.
Is it going to happen?
I think it's already happening. I think millions of us are already enjoying more flexible working hours anyway. People are looking at reimagining the future of work, reimagining their lives. And a number of businesses have approached us over the last couple of weeks, couple of months. They're already making the move. I think it's happening. I think it's about how long it takes to get there. I think it makes a lot of sense. It would make us all happier and healthier. We just need to do it.
I wonder what our grandparents or great-grandparents would have made of this. Laura, a little smile from you on that one?
I just thought about my grandparents, actually, who worked 7 days a week, right? Because they are at the countryside, so they have to do that. But they also had structure around the day and when they engaged in work and when not. And the structure was to some extent imposed by the society, like national holidays and whatnot, and Sunday being a day off for some of them. And so I guess I want to come back to the point of structure and to the point of moving towards a happier workforce that involves focusing a little bit more on things that we know bring us more happiness, which is leisure, and also work, but in a structured way. And there's some research showing that employees who adopt mobile technology so that they are flexible in their work and they can do the work at their chosen times, they actually end up working all the time. It's called the autonomy paradox because we carry our work in our pockets. And so I think there's a need on structure, and the structure can come from the organization in collaboration with the employees and what works best.
I want to say to you, look, my great-grandfather was a sheep farmer in New Zealand. He might have said, any thought of a 4-day week, David, it means you're very lazy.
I want to come back to the conversation, what does productivity mean and what does efficiency mean today? And I think a lot of the conversations around the 4-day work week that it's also being brought up by the COVID crisis is, what do we mean by productivity? Is it being seen in the office for 7 hours, 8 hours, or whatnot? Or is it actually delivering quality output that you do in less hours, or you're doing it at home or where you can? So I think it brings up a lot of conversations that were already happening before COVID, but COVID has amplified these conversations about what does it mean to measure productivity nowadays? Because it's not, number of hours that we work. It's not inputs anymore. It's more the quality. And that's, I think, the shift that we're going to see as well. And perhaps the 4-day work week is a tool towards that.
Rajneesh, I'll throw the question back at you again. David, you're lazy. You should go to work every day.
Yes, I think that, first of all, I don't think you're lazy. But I think this COVID-19, I'm connecting to what Laura said here. COVID-19 has taught us many lessons. People are working from home. They've had to find new ways of being efficient, but they've also discovered new ways of being inefficient. I mean, the Skype call and the Zoom call and so forth, and people seem to think endless meetings kind of justify their existence. So we're seeing, while certain people become more efficient, people need to collaborate with other people have become more inefficient. That is to say, when you need to work with a team and sit around the room and talk with people, as we should be doing in the studio ordinarily, the efficiency has reduced. We've actually become less efficient in these activities, whereas other activities, people who didn't need to actively collaborate with other people have become more efficient. So we can see this kind of separation happening where we see people who are becoming incredibly efficient and who could possibly move to a 4-day work week because they've discovered efficiencies, from those who need to collaborate and need to work with customers or other people in the office. So the physical presence in the office, and this connects, to the question of efficiency. How do we find efficiencies? And I think this is going to be something that'll happen over a longer period of time as we work out how to find these areas where we can contract things.
I suppose it all depends, and then, Joe, I'm going to get you to wrap up the program here because we've just got a couple of minutes left. It all depends how companies, how employers are taking this idea. You talk about what you want from the trade, what the trades unions want, but what about employers? What sort of reaction is there?
Well, I mean, there's 7 or 8 businesses we've been talking to. I've been speaking to them today, actually, and they're saying so far that, for example, just give one example, there's a magazine based near Cambridge, and they've said they've all gone down to 4 days. The staff are way happier. It's the same pay. The magazine's getting out at the same time as it normally would. They're hitting all their targets. Everyone's, the whole office just seems to be functioning a lot better. Everyone's getting on better. I mean, largely, I don't think it needs to be a big scary move for businesses. I think they just need to see more and more people getting on with it and doing it, and come and join.
But how long before the owner of that magazine says, hang on, if you stay there for 5 days, if you can do it all in 4 days, just go out for that extra day and get me some more advertising money so that I can get a bigger car and a nicer swimming pool?
Well, that's an existential question there, isn't it? I mean, do we exist to simply boost the economy, or does the economy exist to improve our lives? I mean, I think it's the latter. And I think a 4-day week is the vision for that.
Have you heard of Parkinson's law, Laura and Rajneesh? Work expands to fill the time available. What will this new law be called if time contracts? What do you think? Is it going to happen, Rajneesh?
No, I'm a pessimist in this matter. There will be outliers, people who need to work, who can work in their industries where it makes sense. To move towards a 4-day work week because there are efficiencies available to them through various mechanisms. But vast majority of industry, especially in the service industry, as you said earlier, are not going to make this move. I think we're just, it's window dressing at this point.
Laura, what do you think?
I think it does come down to how the employer is going to take this and whether they're implementing it because they care about their employees and they want to give them free time that they can invest in the things that they care about beyond just work, or whether it's going to be a window dressing. And so I do want to end by saying, I think it's the right time to some extent to experiment with alternative ways of working because the old ways are not necessarily working for everyone the same way.
Listen, I appreciate it very much indeed, and I do hope that I haven't lengthened your working week by asking you to appear on the programme, particularly you, Joe, although, of course, you have got a bit of extra time compared to an awful lot of people. Much appreciated you coming on the programme. Joe, Laura, Rajneesh, hope to have your company on another occasion. And we thank you, wherever you happen to be watching this programme, for joining us here on Roundtable. Go to YouTube if you want to see more of our output. Many of our programmes are there. That's YouTube, TRT World, Roundtable. From me, David Foster, from the team that put it all together, thank you for watching. Hope to have your company next time. Bye-bye.